Welcome to 10 Reasons Why. Today, we journey back into the heart of ancient China, where emperors ruled with unmatched power and divine authority. Behind the towering palace walls and golden dragon thrones, these rulers shaped the destiny of millions, commanded vast armies, and carried the weight of heaven's mandate upon their shoulders. From the splendor of the Forbidden City to the mysteries of the Silk Road, from symbols of divine power to legacies that still echo in modern China, discover why the emperor was more than a king, more than a ruler. He was the living embodiment of an empire. In this video, you will uncover 10 reasons why the emperor of ancient China was so powerful. Now, follow me, a humble servant who once walked these palace corridors, and listen closely as I share the stories I have witnessed with my own eyes. In ancient China, no emperor could sit comfortably on the dragon throne without something greater than armies or gold. That something was called the asterisk mandate of heaven. It was the divine seal of approval, a belief that heaven itself had chosen the emperor to rule. Without it, his power meant nothing. Now, to the people, this idea explained everything. If the rivers flowed gently, the harvests were rich, and families lived in peace, they said, asterisk, heaven favors our emperor. But if floods swept away villages or locusts devoured the fields, the whispers began, asterisk, heaven has turned away. Natural disasters weren't just bad luck, they were signs that the emperor might be failing in his duty. And that's where it gets fascinating. The mandate of heaven gave the emperor supreme authority, yet it also put him under constant pressure. He wasn't free to rule however he pleased. He had to govern with virtue, justice, and care for the people. Otherwise, rebels could claim that heaven had withdrawn its mandate and rise up against him. Entire dynasties, like the Shang, the Zhou, and the Ming, rose and fell because of this belief. From inside the palace walls, you could feel its weight. Imagine sitting on a golden throne, draped in silk embroidered with dragons, knowing that one drought, one famine, or one misstep could shake your legitimacy. The emperor looked untouchable, but his crown was balanced on something invisible and fragile. That is the genius of the mandate of heaven. It transformed the emperor from a mere king into a divine ruler, yet reminded him that his authority was never truly his own. It belonged to heaven, and heaven could take it away. If there was one thing every man, woman, and terrified palace servant knew, it was this: the emperor's word was law. Not a suggestion, not an opinion, law. When the emperor spoke, scribes carved his words into bamboo or silk, ministers bowed, and armies marched. In a world without parliaments, elections, or courts of appeal, the emperor's voice was the highest authority under heaven. Inside the Forbidden City, I often carried messages across echoing halls. A single order, sometimes no longer than a sentence, could change the fate of thousands. Raise the tax on salt, and whole provinces felt the burden. Command a canal to be built, and tens of thousands of laborers took up their shovels. Decree a general unworthy, and even the mightiest warlord fell overnight. Such was the weight of absolute power. Of course, this authority wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. The emperor embodied the empire itself. His seals, stamped in vermilion ink, turned scrolls into binding law. His robes, shimmering with golden dragons, reminded all who looked upon him that he was no ordinary man but the Son of Heaven. Even officials who had studied for decades to pass the grueling civil service exams bowed their heads low when he entered the hall. But absolute authority is a double-edged sword. To rule everything means to be blamed for everything. Success was celebrated as the emperor's wisdom, while failure, famine, defeat, rebellion, was seen as his weakness. Still, no one dared to question him openly. His power was unquestionable, his reach unchallenged, his decisions final. To serve such a ruler was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. For in ancient China, the emperor was not just the highest judge, general, and priest. He was the living embodiment of the empire itself. If you think palace walls and fancy golden robes kept the emperor safe, think again. What truly secured his throne was an army so vast and disciplined that even the bravest rebel thought twice before raising a sword. The emperor commanded forces counted not in hundreds, but in hundreds of thousands, armies that stretched across the Great Wall, guarded trade routes, and marched into foreign lands when duty called. As a servant, I sometimes saw generals entering the palace, armor glinting in the sunlight, their every bow heavy with both loyalty and ambition. The emperor's seal could summon legions overnight. Farmers became soldiers, villages emptied, and banners rose like forests of silk. Whether it was defending against northern nomads, expanding borders into new territories, or quelling uprisings, the emperor's armies were his iron fist. And oh, the marvels they left behind. The terracotta warriors, thousands of life-sized clay soldiers buried with the first emperor, stand as a silent reminder of the might he wielded. Each one carved with unique features, as if to say, yes, we had enough soldiers to give every face a story. And then there was the Great Wall, stretching across mountains and deserts, built not just of stone, but of sweat and sacrifice from countless soldiers and laborers. But with great armies came great costs. Feeding them, paying them, and keeping them loyal was a challenge as immense as their size. Yet their existence made the emperor's power unquestionable. With a single order, he could unleash a force capable of shaping history. So while the emperor's words carried divine weight, it was his armies, the endless tide of spears, shields, and drums, that made sure no one forgot who truly ruled China. I may just be a lowly servant, but I've seen something more terrifying than armies or golden thrones: the emperor's grip on the officials who run the empire. With a stroke of his brush, he could raise a man from obscurity to high office, or cast a powerful minister into ruin overnight. The mandarins, those learned scholars who had studied day and night to pass the grueling civil service exams, all lived in quiet dread. Their books and wisdom gave them status, but their survival depended on a single thing: the emperor's favor. I remember carrying scrolls sealed with vermilion ink, orders that flew from the palace into the provinces. Raise the grain tax here, promote a magistrate there, dismiss a corrupt official. Every decision rippled through villages and cities like the turning of heaven's wheel. And it wasn't just politics. The emperor's bureaucracy touched everything: how the laws were enforced, how much silver farmers owed, even what children learned in their village schools. From the heart of the palace, the emperor's will traveled down like a river, branching into every corner of the land. I often heard whispers among the eunuchs and attendants. The generals wield swords, but the emperor wields pens, and those cut deeper. Watching the mandarins bow until their foreheads touched the cold stone floor, I understood. His power did not just rest on soldiers or palaces. It flowed through men of learning, through laws and taxes, through the very order of society itself. That was the emperor's true genius, ruling not just with armies, but with minds and ink. I have swept the marble floors of the Hall of Supreme Harmony before dawn, when the air still carried the chill of night. By sunrise, the space transformed into a stage where heaven and earth seemed to meet. The emperor's rituals were not just ceremonies, they were weapons of power. Every bow, every drumbeat, every curl of incense smoke reminded us that the emperor stood at the center of the cosmos. When he performed the great sacrifices at the Temple of Heaven, even the highest ministers knelt in silence, trembling as if heaven itself watched from above. I once carried offerings of silk and jade to the altar, and I swear, the stillness was so heavy that even the birds seemed afraid to sing. These ceremonies were more than tradition. They were proof that the emperor alone could speak to the gods, command the ancestors, and bring harmony between heaven and earth. When he prayed for rain, the farmers believed the clouds obeyed him. When he bowed to heaven, the whole empire bowed with him. I used to watch foreign envoys enter the palace courts, their eyes wide as they witnessed the dazzling processions. Golden banners rippling in the wind, drums like thunder, lines of officials stretching as far as the eye could see. They understood at once, this was no ordinary ruler. This was the Son of Heaven, chosen to keep the world in balance. For his servants, the rituals were exhausting, endless rehearsals and sleepless nights. But deep down, we knew their purpose. The emperor's power was not only in his armies or decrees, it was sanctified by heaven itself, displayed for all to see in fire, incense, and silence. In the palace, walls have ears, and they all belong to the emperor. I learned this the hard way. A careless whisper in the servants' quarters, a grumble about taxes or hunger, could vanish a man before sunrise. No one ever spoke of it aloud, but we all knew. The emperor's spies moved among us, silent as shadows. They weren't only in the palace. Out in the provinces, in markets and villages, Informants carried news back to the throne. Rebellious thoughts, corrupt officials, even family quarrels, nothing escaped the emperor's net. I once delivered tea to a minister who looked pale and shaking. The next day, he was gone. His crime? Words spoken in confidence, repeated by ears loyal only to the throne. For his servants, the lesson was clear. Loyalty was life, silence was survival. The emperor ruled not just with laws and armies, but with fear, the kind that lived inside your own mind. To resist him meant to be invisible by morning, your name struck from the records as if you had never lived. That was the emperor's hidden strength. He saw everything, even in the dark. I still remember the first time I was ordered to dust the imperial treasury. My hands shook as I touched chests overflowing with silver ingots, bolts of silk stacked higher than a man, and jade so pure it seemed to glow in the dark. The emperor's wealth was beyond imagining, and it came from every corner of the empire. Farmers toiled in the fields, their grain collected as tax and sent in endless caravans to the capital. Merchants along the Silk Road paid tolls, their goods seized or taxed to fill the coffers. And then there were the tribute missions, envoys from distant lands bowing low, presenting gold, pearls, spices, even exotic animals, all as offerings to the Son of Heaven. I once watched a ceremony where foreign rulers bent their knees before the throne, their treasures laid out like stars before the emperor. He did not smile, nor did he boast. He simply accepted them, as though the wealth of the world was his natural right. To serve in those halls was to understand. Armies may win battles, but gold wins empires. And the emperor had more gold than anyone on earth. I was only a servant, carrying ink and brushes for the scholars, but even I could see how tightly the emperor gripped the empire's mind. Knowledge itself bent to his will. The great Confucian classics, the Analects, the Book of Rites, the Histories, all were declared sacred, not just books, but blueprints for the empire. Through the civil service exams, the emperor decided who could rise to power. Men studied for decades, memorizing thousands of lines, their fate resting on a single essay judged by imperial examiners. To serve the emperor, you had to think as the emperor wished. And so, generation after generation, minds were molded to the same order: loyalty, hierarchy, obedience. I remember watching young candidates arrive in the capital, thin from years of study, clutching their scrolls like lifelines. Some wept with joy when chosen, others disappeared in disgrace. All of it reminded me, the emperor did not just command bodies and armies, he commanded thoughts. In a world where books could be burned, where ideas themselves could vanish at the emperor's decree, knowledge was not freedom. Knowledge was a chain, and the emperor held the key. I once heard the elders whisper, "An emperor does not die, he only changes his palace." And when I finally saw the tombs, I understood. Even in death, the emperor's power lived on, carved into stone and earth so vast it could humble the living. Take the first emperor's mausoleum, guarded by thousands of terracotta warriors, each soldier unique, as if ready to rise at his command. Or the grand tombs of the Ming emperors, their spiritways lined with stone beasts and guardians, stretching farther than the eye can see. These were not graves, they were kingdoms, built underground, where emperors continued to rule in silence. Inside the palace, I dusted bronze cauldrons and jade seals that would one day be buried with the Son of Heaven, treasures meant to serve him in eternity. To us servants, it was terrifying. While our names would vanish like smoke, his would echo for centuries, etched into temples, histories, and monuments. That is the final reason the emperor was so powerful. His rule did not end with life. His shadow stretched across generations, reminding all who came after that even death could not erase the Son of Heaven.